Some words don't leave when the conversation ends. They follow you. They show up in quiet moments. They sit beside you in interviews. They whisper when you're trying something new. And sometimes the person who said them may not even remember saying them, but your nervous system still does. Today I want to talk about that. Because I saw a post on LinkedIn that said, be careful with your words because you don't know how many times they repeat in someone's head. And man, that one stopped me. Not because it was trendy, not because it sounded poetic, but because it's true. And for me, it did more than make me think. It made me look back. Hey y'all, welcome back to Ways of Change. This is day 68 of my overseas job search, my reinvention journey, and this very real process of building a life that feels more aligned, more peaceful, and more honest. So here's the job hunt update for today. I applied for 2 positions, one in Gillinkirchen and the other in Ramstein. And both of them were work-life consultants. Those roles feel aligned with the kind of work I've done for years. Supporting people, helping people navigate stress, wellness, and emotional well-being in a meaningful way. I also completed my engagement hour by liking and commenting on posts on LinkedIn. And one of those posts I commented on became the topic for this episode. Because sometimes one sentence doesn't just make you reflect, it makes you remember. And today's sentence did exactly that. Be careful with your words because you don't know how many times they repeat in someone's head. So today we're talking about words, the ones spoken to us, the ones we repeat to ourselves, the ones that shape us, and the ones that we have to heal from so they stop running our lives. So let's get to today's scripture. Today's scripture is Proverbs 18 and 21, and this is the NIV version. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. That verse is so simple and so serious. Life and death, not just in a dramatic sense, but in a daily sense. Words can breathe life into someone who's barely hanging on. Words can crush somebody who's already trying the best. Words can build confidence, and words can seed shame. Now, some of us know that not because we studied it, but because we lived it. Words don't just land in your mind. They land in your body. They land in your memory. They land in your identity and your nervous system. And if they're repeated enough or spoken by somebody important enough, they can start sounding like the truth, even when they were never true. When I read that post, I was taken right back to my childhood. I can still remember being out in our yard. It was super, super hot, and I was helping my dad with yard work. My dad was deeply frustrated by my complaints about the heat and 10-year-old work ethic. And in that moment, he said something that stayed with me for years. He said, "You ain't worth a nickel." And man, when you're a child, you don't know how to process a statement like that. You don't have the language to say, well, he must be overwhelmed. Well, he may be speaking from his own pain. Well, that was a dysregulated moment. No, when you're a child, you hear it as truth. You hear it as a verdict. You hear it as, this is who I am. This is what I'm worth. This is how I'm seen. And for years, that sentence repeated in my head. It followed me. It showed up in moments when I was already unsure of myself. It showed up when I didn't get picked. It showed up when I made mistakes. It showed up in moments where I should have felt confident, but instead I felt like I had something to prove. And the one thing about words like that is that they don't always scream. Sometimes they whisper. Sometimes they just sit in the background like a low hum, but there they are. And unless you do the work to heal them, they can become part of your internal narrator. And that is why today's topic matters so much. Because a lot of people will say, oh, that was years ago. Oh, just let it go. Oh, I'm sure they didn't mean it. But the body doesn't always work like that. Your brain is wired to remember threats. So when words are harsh, demeaning, humiliating, or deeply wounding, especially from a parent or somebody whose voice carries authority, your brain can register that like danger. Your amygdala, which is your brain's alarm system, gets activated. Stress hormones like cortisol gets released, and your body stores the experience. So you don't just remember the words, you remember the tone, the tension, the shame, the confusion, the seeking feeling in your chest, the silence afterwards. That's why one cruel sentence can outlast 100 compliments. That's not weakness. That's survival wiring. Your body remembers what your mind tried to move past. That worth the nickel comment didn't just hurt in the moment. It echoed. It became one of those phrases that tried to attach itself to my identity. So in moments when I was stretching, applying, trying, hoping, or showing up in new spaces, that old message would try to rise up. Not always loudly, but quietly enough to influence how I felt. And I think a lot of us have those phrases. Maybe yours wasn't, you ain't worth a nickel. Maybe yours was, you'll never be anything. You're too much. You're too sensitive. You're not smart enough. Nobody wants to hear you. You always mess things up. Whatever it is, if it got planted deep enough, it can keep repeating long after that person who said it has moved on. That's why healing matters. If you don't interrupt the echo, you can start making decisions from wounds instead of wisdom. You can start shrinking in rooms where you were meant to walk boldly into. You can start doubting qualifications you actually have. You can start apologizing for your voice, your needs, your goals, your presence. And that's too high of a price to keep paying for somebody else's hurtful words. Words don't just describe us. Over time, they could train us. If a child hears that they are worthless, they may grow into an adult who overworks to prove value. If somebody hears they're too much, they may spend years making themselves smaller. If somebody hears they can't do anything right, they may become terrified of making mistakes. And even as adults, words still shape identity. How we speak to our children, how we speak to our partners, how we speak to the people we lead, how we speak to our coworkers, how we speak to patients, clients, students, and yes, how we speak to ourselves. As someone who works in wellness and has spent years supporting people through stress, change, and overwhelm, I can tell you this. People may forget the exact wording, but they remember how your words made them feel in their body. Did your words feel safe? Did they feel sharp? Did they feel regulating? Or did they feel shaming? Words matter, y'all. Let's go a little deeper because words are not just emotional. They're chemical too. Harsh words, chronic criticism, sarcasm that cuts, humiliation, verbal belittling. These things can keep the body leaning towards cortisol. That means stress, vigilance, bracing, defensiveness, shutdown. But kind, sincere, affirming, specific words can help support safety. And when safety is present, oxytocin has room. That's the hormone connected with trust, bonding, connection, and feeling safe enough to soften. So in simple terms, cortisol says protect yourself, brace, don't trust this, stay small. Oxytocin says, you're safe here, you belong here, you can exhale here. And if you grew up with more criticism than tenderness, it can take time to believe kind words, but it's possible. The brain can learn new patterns. The nervous system can learn new safety. And your inner voice can be retrained. Now let's bring this inward, because other people have said things that hurt us, but many of us have also become very skilled at repeating those things to ourselves. Maybe nobody has said you're worthless in years, but you still question your value every time you get rejected. Maybe nobody has called you too much lately, but you still silence yourself before anyone else has the chance. Maybe nobody has told you you're not enough this week, but your inner critic has said it all day long. And that's what we have to start paying attention to. Healing is not just about what other people stop saying. It's also about what you stop agreeing with. For me, part of healing has been refusing to let that old sentence keep narrating my life. Because I'm not worth a nickel. I'm worthy because God says I am. I'm valuable because my existence is not up for negotiation. I'm not what was spoken over me in somebody else's moment of frustration, and neither are you. One of the most powerful things we could do is decide the pain stops with us. That wound does not become the inheritance. That just because certain words were spoken to us doesn't mean we get to pass them down. And I think that's part of why this story has stayed with me. That moment with my dad taught me, in a painful way, how powerful words really are. It made me deeply aware of what language can do to a child, to confidence, to identity, to the nervous system. And that awareness can become wisdom. So breaking the cycle can sound like, I need a minute before I respond. Let me say that differently. This child needs coaching, not crushing. I can be truthful without being cruel. I can correct behavior without attacking identity. That's healing. That's leadership. That's maturity. Sometimes the strongest thing you could do is regulate yourself enough to speak life when your pain wants to speak death. And this connects so deeply to my job hunt right now. When you're applying for positions, especially overseas positions, there's already enough vulnerability built into that process. You're waiting, you're hoping, you're putting yourself out there. You're trying to stay encouraged without guarantees. That's already tender. So this can't be the season where I speak death over myself. This can't be the season where old words get to tell me not to try. This can't be the season where I act like my dream is foolish. And this can't be the season where I minimize my own experience or shrink myself before anyone else has even responded. This is the season for faith and action, gentleness and courage, hope and persistence. Today I applied for those two positions. And whether they open the door immediately or not, I'm proud that I showed up. I'm proud that I applied. I'm proud that I completed my engagement hour. I'm proud that I'm staying visible, that I'm still in the arena. Because reinvention is just not external, it's internal too. All right, let's take a breath together. If you're driving, keep your eyes open and just listen. If you're at home, soften your gaze or close your eyes. Take a slow breath in through your nose and exhale gently through your mouth. Again, inhale and exhale. Relax your shoulders, unclench your jaw, soften your hands, let your belly relax. Now ask yourself, what words have been repeating in my head? What phrase still has a grip on me? What sentence still stings? Don't force it, just notice. Now quietly say, I acknowledge the pain those words cause. I acknowledge that they landed deeply. I acknowledge that my body remembers. And I acknowledge that I am ready to begin releasing what no longer serves me. Take a breath. Now imagine those words in front of you, not inside of you, in front of you. See them outside of your body and say, those words were spoken to me, but they do not define me. They may have wounded me, but they are not my identity. They may have shaped parts of my story, but they do not get to shape my future. Take another breath. If it feels safe, bring to mind the person who said them and say, I release your words from authority over my life. I release the need to keep bleeding from the same place. I do not excuse what happened. I don't call wrong right. But for my peace, for my healing, for my freedom, I let it go. Now place your hand over your heart and say, I forgive myself for believing what was never mine to carry. I forgive myself for repeating those words to myself. I forgive myself for shrinking because of the pain. I was surviving, now I'm healing. Take another breath and repeat, I am worthy, I am valuable, I am not what was said about me in someone else's worst moment. I am allowed to take up space. I'm allowed to begin again. I'm safe to release what no longer belongs to me. Deep breath in and a longer exhale. That right there was holy work. Because forgiveness is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's shaky. Sometimes it's simply the decision to stop rehearsing the wound. And for some of us, that's a major act of freedom. Language that helps you rise. Language that tells the truth without tearing you down. And I'm learning that in real time. Through every application, every waiting season, every act of courage, every uncertain step, every decision to keep showing up. Yeah, I'm applying for jobs, and I'm building my next chapter, and I'm trusting God in the middle. But I'm also learning how to become a safer place for myself while I do it. And that matters just as much. If this spoke to you, let me know in the comments. What's one phrase you're choosing to release? And what's one truth you're choosing to replace it with? And if you're in a season of reinvention, healing, waiting, or becoming, subscribe and come on this journey with me here on Ways of Change. Because around here, we're not just changing things on the outside. We're doing the inner work too. Hey friend, I'm Vanessa, and thank you for joining me for day 68. I appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow.